Chapter 1 The Nightmare Stone. It was a peaceful rainy night in Dreamland. Everyone was nestled in their beds, dreaming of good times and happy places. All seemed well in Dreamland, except for a certain king. Laying in his bedchambers, King DDD tosses and turns, with restless thoughts keeping him awake in the twilight hour. He wrestled with thoughts of defeat at the hands of his arch nemesis, Kirby.
Every time I think I got him, he always stops my plans. I'm sick of him. Every turn, every corner, I gotta get rid of him once and for all.
Suddenly, one of DDD's henchmen, Tweedledee, busts through his bedroom door. DDD jumps out of his bed and screams.
What's the matter with you? Can't you see I'm trying to sleep?
DDD says angrily. Tweedledee replies.
I'm terribly sorry, sire. I hate to interrupt your beauty sleep, but...
Another henchman, Tweedledee, pops in and says, We found it, your highness, we found it. DDD squints his eyes and says,
Found what? What could possibly be so important to wake me up in the middle of the night for?
Tweedledee says,
We found the Nightmare Stone, sire.
Yeah, we found it, boss. Tweedledee says cheerfully. Suddenly, DDD's eyes brighten up and he has a big smile on his face.
Woohoo! Yeah!
DDD exclaims. Tweedledee pulls the stone out of a bag and says, What does this thing do, boss? DDD snatches it out of his hand and says,
Yes, I finally have it. Now I can finally be rid of that overgrown ping pong ball.
Both of his henchmen look at DDD, anticipating an answer about the stone's abilities. DDD looks back at them and says,
What do I... Oh, yeah, I'll tell you. This stone here is said to summon the most evil, the most diabolical, the most powerful creature in all the universe and have it be at your command. With this, I'll be able to rule the entire galaxy and nothing will stand in my way. But how does this thing work? Does it come with any instructions or something?
Tweedledee replies.
Actually, it does, sire.
He pulled out a scroll and read it aloud, and it said,
Place the stone in the center of your palm and grasp it tightly with your hand. Now say these words out loud.
DDD snatches the scroll out of Tweedledee's hand, and it accidentally ripped the bottom part of it off. Tweedledee looked at the remaining piece and realized it had a warning label on it. The warning label read, Beware, only those of strong will could contain the power of the Nightmare Stone.
Sire, wait!
Yelled Tweedledee. DDD grabbed his hammer and flattened Tweedledee into the shape of a coin. DDD did as the instructions said and recited the words and said,
I'll call forth the power of this stone. Bring unto me a being of evil that I may control and do my bidding now.
The stone started to glow, and it became so hot that DDD dropped it on the floor. The stone started to shake, and beams of purple light emitted from it. The light beams began to merge together, and a portal started to form. Lightning bolts struck around the portal, and the silhouette of a man with a clawed hand and a fedora appeared. It reached its hands at the edge of the portal's rim. It pokes its head out of the portal and is revealed as a burned man with a red and green striped sweater and an evil grin on his face. The burned man opened his mouth and said, Here's Freddy. He tries to step out of the portal and didn't realize he was slightly tethered to it. As he struggled to free himself, he said some expletives. Tweedledee attempted to grab the stone, but Freddy looked towards his direction and grabbed him. Freddy held him up in the air and gouged him in the face with his claw. As he gouged him, he turned into a puff of smoke and vanished. Freddy then said, What the hell? He's supposed to bleed. He then looked around and said, How did I get here? Is this a dream? DDD grabbed the stone and said,
This ain't no dream, son. I brought you here and you got a job to do.
Nobody tells me what to do, Freddy said angrily. Freddy was filled with rage and tried to grab DD but was shocked with purple electricity He yelled in pain and falls out of the portal onto the floor. Freddy gets to his feet and stares menacingly at his captor. DDD laughs and says,
Okay, Freddy boy, I don't know where you're from, but I like your style.
Freddy replies, Listen, you fetch. DDD bonked Freddy on his head with his hammer and flattened it. Freddy shook his head and reformed back to normal proportion. A label appeared on his mouth, and the word censored was written on it. Freddy mumbled and tried to take it off, but it wouldn't budge. DDD then said,
I may be a crude fellow myself, but I won't tolerate a potty mouth in my kingdom. Have some class.
DDD rips the label off of Freddy's mouth and yells in pain. Freddy then says, I'll find a way to break free. You won't have me on a leash too long.
Is that so? Well, you'll be free once you do a little job for me.
DDD replied. Freddy then says, What? DDD shows him a picture of Kirby and says,
I want you to get rid of this little troublemaker. His name is Kirby. He's been a pain in my rear for a long time, and I want him out of my sight for good.
Freddy then replies, What's in it for me? DDD chuckles and says,
I'll leave you alone and let you go back to wherever you're from.
Freddy backs up and says, I don't trust you. Where the hell am I anyway? DDD turns his back to Freddy and says,
You're in Dreamland, hamburger boy, and I rule this land.
He turns back around and says,
The name's King DDD, by the way. Sorry I didn't mention it before.
Freddy face palms himself and says, You gotta be... DDD raises an eyebrow, and Freddy stays silent. DDD's royal guards come through the door, and one of them says, King DDD, we heard some commotion upstairs, and have come to your aid. We'll vanquish this intruder at once. DDD waves his hand casually and says,
There's no need. I invited our special guest here. Prepare my throne and have Hamburger Boy meet me there in 5 minutes.
DDD looked at Freddy and said,
Now don't try any funny business, son. I can take you out of here with a snap of a finger. Take him away.
The guards grab Freddy by the shoulders and escort him elsewhere. A few moments later, DDD is sitting at his throne and continuing his conversation with Freddy. DDD then says,
So, Frederick, what's your qualifications? What can you do?
Freddy scoffs and replies, I can enter your dreams and do whatever I want and kill you. There, you happy? DDD smugly replies,
Go on.
Freddy grinds his teeth and yells, I told you what I can do. What else do you want to know? DDD then smirks and says,
Can you control and manipulate dreams?
Freddy smiles and says, Go to sleep and find out. DDD cuts in and says,
I don't think so. Your job is to obey me. Show me your power now and get rid of Kirby this instant.
The stone starts to glow and Freddy begins to disappear.
What? Where'd he go?
DDD exclaimed. The royal guards looked around to see where Freddy went.
What are y'all standing around for? After him!
DDD yelled. The guards searched high and low all over the castle, but came to no avail. DDD was infuriated and looked at the stone. Suddenly a vision appeared in the stone, and it was an image of Kirby sound asleep. A dark shadow appeared over Kirby, and Freddy laughs maniacally.